In the world of high-stakes surgery, where the operating room feels more like the final boss level in a video game, our hero, Dr. Kenzo Tenma, pulls off a surgery so slick you'd think he had cheat codes. Post-operation, his fan club of fellow surgeons basically throws him an impromptu parade, suggesting he take the rest of the day off, probably to autograph scrubs or something. Exiting stage left, Dr. Tenma spots a boy with a front row seat to his mom's tearfest. Tenma, in a move not covered in medical school, decides emotional support is above his pay grade and bounces. The boy, now doubling as a mini detective, inquires about the status of his dad, only to upgrade his mom's tears to a full-on waterworks display. Then, in a plot twist that feels straight out of a soap opera, Eva Hyman wakes Tenma for their hot date, but not before the TV decides to give its 2 cents, showcasing the Liebert family drama and a dash of Tenma's own celebrity surgeon moment. Well, almost. The spotlight gets hijacked by Dr. Hyman, who apparently forgot Tenma was the star player. Eva, playing the role of Tenma's career coach, outlines a game plan for medical domination that mostly involves shadowing her dad. Meanwhile, Dr. Becker slips into the scene, hinting at a conspiracy theory where Tenma is the golden goose of the hospital. Unbeknownst to him, the dramatic confrontation with an angry woman in the corridor, blaming Tenma for choosing opera over her husband. This moment was so tense, you could cut the tension with a scalpel. Later, on his date with Eva, Tenma's guilt trip is so intense, it almost becomes a third wheel. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the hospital, the plot thickens with the murder mystery of the Liebert family, throwing Tenma into a racing against time scenario, this time without Eva, who probably wouldn't appreciate the detour. In a twist of fate, Dr. Hyman, acting as if he's auditioning for the role of Tenma's fairy godmother, casually suggests ditching research for some manuscript magic. However, Tenma's mind is on the fast lane, nearly missing a truck en route to a decision that could redefine his career, facing the ultimate surgeon's dilemma, saving a critically injured boy or adhering to the hospital's VIP guest list. Tenma has his superhero moment. Ignoring the call to operate on the mayor, he decides to save the boy, showcasing his rebel with a cause spirit. Meanwhile, Anna, stuck in a loop of psychological turmoil, adds an eerie soundtrack to the drama with her chilling request. Thus, our surgical saga ends with Tenma defying the odds in the hospital's hierarchy, armed with nothing but a scalpel and a heart of gold, proving that in the world of medicine, sometimes you have to break the rules to save a life. And if you thought hospitals were just about flu shots and awkward gowns, think again. After successfully extracting the bullet from Johan's brain, Dr. Tenma emerges from the operation theater, momentarily feeling like he's just won the medical equivalent of the World Cup. However, the victory lap is cut short by Dr. Boyer, who basically accuses Tenma of having the mayor's blood on his hands due to his absence. Tenma, standing his ground, points out the timeline issue. Johan was first in line. The hospital's rumor mill, powered by Dr. Becker, is in full swing, painting Tenma as the villain of professional conduct. Yet, a glimmer of joy pierces through the gossip as Tenma hears that Johan's vitals are stable, offering him a momentary high five from fate. In the solitude of his room, Tenma finds himself getting sucked into the news vortex, discovering the tragic tale of the Liebert family. It's like watching a soap opera, except he's somehow part of the cast now. His heart goes out to Johan, sparking an unexpected connection. Just as he's about to drown in paperwork and medical reports, Dr. Becker crashes the pity party, hinting that Tenma's gamble on saving Johan over the mayor might cost him more than just bad press. Meanwhile, the detective's quest to find Anna leads to a dead end at the hospital, and Anna herself seems to be wandering the halls in a daze, adding a ghostly subplot to the already drama-packed storyline. At the hospital gala, where accolades are being handed out like candy, Tenma finds himself on the social sidelines until a twist in the plot reveals Dr. Boyer as the new head honcho of neurosurgery. It's like watching someone else get promoted on your own birthday. The director then delivers the final blow to Tenma's career, stripping him of research duties and denying him a golden ticket in the form of a recommendation letter. The hospital politics taste worse than hospital food, leading Tenma to make a dramatic exit, only to be met with Ava's cold shoulder and flying engagement ring, a scene so soap opera it needed its own dramatic music. Finding solace beside Johan's bed, Tenma shares his tale of woe, unintentionally giving Johan a pep talk that's so effective it literally wakes him up. Meanwhile, the detectives attempt to snap Anna out of her shock by reuniting her with Johan backfires spectacularly, turning the hospital corridor into a scene straight out of a tragic opera. The director, ever the opportunist, sees Johan's saga as a PR goldmine, deciding to swap Tenma for a more media-friendly face, proving that in hospital politics, you're only as good as your last headline. Caught in a moment of crisis with Anna and facing off against Boya, Tenma discovers that not only has he lost his patient, but also any remaining dignity, as evidenced by his impromptu and alcohol-fueled karaoke session on the streets. The plot thickens with the mysterious deaths of Dr. Becker, Dr. Boya, and Ava's father, turning what started as a medical drama into a full-blown thriller. Tenma, now seemingly praying for divine intervention, finds himself in the eye of a storm, where doctors die, love is lost, and hospital politics could well be the end of him. In a narrative twist that feels like it's straight out of a gripping crime thriller, Dr. Kenzo Tenma's life takes a series of dramatic turns, starting with an unexpected visit from the police. They question him about his whereabouts the night before, a question to which he has a solid, albeit slightly inebriated alibi. The news of the murders of the director, Dr. Boya, and Dr. Becker hits him as he arrives at the hospital to find it swarmed with media. A scene more fitting for a movie premiere than a healthcare facility. As Tenma navigates through this chaos, prioritizing his duties as a doctor over assisting in the police investigation, the disappearance of the Liebert twins adds another layer of mystery to an already convoluted plot. The cemetery scene with Eva mourning adds a touch of somber reality to the whirlwind of events. Detective Lunge of the BKA introduces a methodical, if somewhat quirky, approach to the investigation, using physical gestures to lock away crucial information in his memory. This detail, alongside the revelation of the poison found in the victims, linked by toffee wrappers, adds a peculiar and sinister element to the murders. Tenma's interactions reveal his exhaustion and a longing for a simpler life back in Japan, yet he is reminded by those around him, from patients to nurses, of the rare good he brings to the medical world. His unexpected promotion to chief of surgery, amidst this tumult, offers a moment of redemption and personal victory, though it's marred by his resolve to part ways with Eva, underscoring a theme of personal sacrifice and integrity. Fast forward 9 years, and Tenma's dedication to his profession remains unwavering, despite the undercurrents of past tragedies. The scene shifts to Detective Lunge and his ongoing investigation into a series of chilling murders, pointing towards a calculated serial killer. The introduction of Adolf Junkers as a suspect adds a new piece to the puzzle, blending the lines between past and present dilemmas. The accident involving Junkers and his subsequent race to the hospital under Lunge's watchful eye reintroduces Tenma into the fold of a new, but intimately connected, crisis. Lunge's insinuation that Tenma might have benefited the most from the director's death adds a layer of suspicion and intrigue, painting Tenma as a complex character caught in a web of moral, ethical, and legal dilemmas. As Tenma operates to save Junkers, the patient's fearful ramblings about a monster coming back stir the plot further, suggesting a deep and dark narrative that ties back to the mysterious and seemingly cursed Liebert twins. In a chilling development, Junkers' fearful declarations about the monster become the focal point of a tense investigation led by Inspector Lunge. Despite Junkers' evident terror, Lunge attempts to cut a deal, suggesting a lesser punishment in exchange for information about his accomplices in the string of middle-aged couple murders. Junkers' reaction, a mix of fear and despair, underscores the gravity of his predicament and the dark web of crime he's entangled in. Lunge, ever the pragmatist, decides to keep Junkers under watch, hinting at a pattern of misfortune that seems to shadow Dr. Tenma, further complicating the already murky waters surrounding the recent events. Tenma, seeking to offer some solace, shares his own turbulent journey with Junkers, drawing a poignant parallel between their lives. Junkers' confession, revealing a life marred by crime yet touched by moments of longing for simple joys, paints a tragic figure caught in the crosshairs of a much darker force. The subsequent discovery of the murdered security guard and Junkers' desperate escape plunges Tenma into a nightmarish chase, leading him to a confrontation with the very embodiment of the terror Junkers feared, Johan. This encounter reveals the horrifying truth that Johan, the boy Tenma saved years ago, has metamorphosed into a monstrous figure, orchestrating a series of grim events as a perverse repayment for Tenma's act of saving him. Johan's chilling acknowledgement of the murders as a twisted tribute to Tenma's desires, juxtaposed with his cold execution of Junkers, unveils a complex web of guilt, responsibility, and unintended consequences. Tenma's realization of the monstrous outcome of his life-saving surgery shatters any remnants of his professional pride, plunging him into a deep moral crisis. The narrative takes a darker turn as Tenma, driven by a sense of duty and despair, turns to the police, only to find himself ensnared in suspicion. The irony of Tenma's situation, hailed as a chief of surgery and a savior, yet possibly marked as a criminal mastermind, casts a long shadow over his legacy and the ethical dimensions of his decisions. As Tenma walks away, burdened by the weight of his choices and their catastrophic fallout, his tears encapsulate the profound ambiguity of right and wrong. The lives of Nina Fortner and Dr. Kenzo Tenma intertwine in a complex web of past secrets and present realities, all under the looming shadow of Johan, whose real name Tenma discovers to be Michael. The story oscillates between mundane daily routines and the undercurrents of a deeper, darker history that both characters are unwittingly part of. Nina Fortner's day begins in a rather typical fashion for a student juggling academia with a part-time job, albeit with a twist of humor as her tardiness due to a pizza delivery is highlighted by Professor Kronecker. Yet, beneath this veneer of normalcy, there's a hint of something more profound and unsettling. Nina's ability to answer Kronecker's question not only spares her classmates from an arduous assignment, but also sets her apart, hinting at an underlying intelligence and resilience. Her life outside the classroom, filled with fight club lessons and pizza deliveries, juxtaposes her strong, independent exterior with moments of vulnerability and curiosity about her past, especially when confronted with a family photo that suggests hidden aspects of her childhood. The mysterious messages on her computer, initially thought to be from Peter, introduce an element of intrigue and potential danger, subtly weaving the narrative thread that connects her to the larger mystery at hand. Meanwhile, Tenma's personal investigation into Johan's past and the revelation of his real name as Michael adds layers to the enigma surrounding Johan. Tenma's quest leads him to learn about the boy's time with the Hyman family and his interactions with an old man who provides insights into Johan's psyche, particularly his fascination with the terror of war and death. This interaction not only deepens Tenma's understanding of Johan's complex character, but also propels him further into the search for Nina, unaware that their paths are on a collision course. As Nina steps into adulthood, her life takes a dramatic turn. The message warning of an impending visit, coupled with her friend's attempts to connect her with a boy from school, culminates in a moment of recognition and horror as she collapses upon seeing a blonde boy, suggesting a deep, possibly traumatic connection to her forgotten past. This convergence of Nina's and Tenma's stories against the backdrop of Johan's malevolent influence paints a picture of intertwined fates shaped by forgotten histories, unresolved traumas, and the relentless pursuit of identity and truth. In an office, Mauro is taken aback when a visitor, Tenma, tells him a chilling story. About 9 years ago, a boy murdered several middle-aged couples and now intends to reunite with his twin sister in Heidelberg, potentially harming her foster parents. Skeptical, Mauro is nonetheless convinced to let Tenma access old newspapers for clues. Despite his disbelief, the story begins to unfold with haunting details from the past. Nina, meanwhile, struggles with haunting memories of a boy she describes as embodying pure evil. Her attempts to reconcile these visions with her current life lead her to a counselor who advises her to focus on the future, an attempt to shield her from the creeping dread of her past. Back at the news agency, Mauro discovers Tenma asleep in the file room, a testament to his desperate search for truth. Their subsequent conversation at a cafe touches on personal losses and the toll of obsession, drawing a parallel between Tenma's relentless pursuit and Maura's own life sacrifices. Nina receives a mysterious message, directing her to Heidelberg Castle, igniting a quest for answers that might unravel her very identity. As her foster parents face the agonizing decision to reveal her true origins, their love prompts them to protect her from the truth, illustrating the depth of their affection amidst looming threats. Tenma and Maura, now entwined in a race against time, head to the Fortner residence to warn of the danger. The urgency of their mission is palpable, with every moment bringing them closer to a confrontation with the past that refuses to remain buried. At Heidelberg Castle, a sequence of events unfolds with cinematic urgency. Nina, confronted by a menacing figure, is saved by Tenma, who reveals fragments of her past life as Anna and hints at the existence of a brother. Their escape, punctuated by a dramatic rescue, sets the stage for a revelation that promises to alter Nina's understanding of herself and her place in the world. This narrative weaves together the personal with the perilous, charting a course through memories best forgotten and truths too significant to ignore. In a fast-moving turn of events, Tenma and Nina, who says her real name is Nina, not Anna, get tangled in a dangerous situation. After finding Mauro and others dead in a house, Tenma realizes they are in big trouble. He and Nina quickly figure out that the policemen they meet later are not real policemen. Tenma notices clues that make him suspicious, like no police lights on the car and blood on one of the men's knees. They escape by jumping into a river. In a quiet moment afterward, Nina shares with Tenma that she feels cursed because people who help them end up hurt or dead. She talks about a dark moment with her brother, which makes Tenma tell her to focus on surviving from now on. Meanwhile, a press conference in the city raises questions about the murders and a mysterious Japanese man, Tenma. When Tenma hears the names of the detectives mentioned, he realizes he's being framed and decides to hide. Tenma tries to help by contacting a newspaper, hoping they can tell his side of the story without involving the police. On his own, Lunge, a detective, finds evidence that could help or hurt Tenma. Nina leaves Tenma, thinking it will protect him. She leaves a note and sandwiches as a goodbye. Tenma is left alone, taking a train, thinking about Nina and their situation, wondering what she will do next. Tenma pondered over what Nina was actually up to, but eventually he returned to his professional life. After performing a surgery, his colleagues showered him with praise for his remarkable skill. Tenma, however, shrugged off the accolades, perhaps lost in thought about something else. Meanwhile, Ava was found asleep on the couch, evidence of her drunken state strewn around, including a photo of her and Tenma, which underscored their once close relationship. Mr. Lunge, insisting on a meeting, introduced himself to Eva, who mocked him as the detective famous for chasing his own tail in cases. Lunge noted the upscale furnishings of the house, to which Eva sarcastically suggested he was there to audit her interior decorating skills, although it was clear her wealth had led her down the path to alcoholism. Presenting a necktie, Lunge inquired if it rang a bell for her, explaining its significance tied to a limited edition from a specific brand. Eva, indifferent, admitted to gifting many men without keeping track, cynically noting, "I guess my love life was more about quantity over quality." Disappointed, Lunge decided it was time to leave, suggesting a more opportune time for their discussion. Eva quipped, "Next time, bring a bottle instead of a badge. You might get more out of me." As he left, Ava's gaze fell on the photograph, stirring memories of her broken engagement with Tenma. The next morning, as Tenma conducted his routine checkups, he was informed of a visitor. Surprised, he found Eva near the door. Seated in the cafeteria, they revisited their tumultuous past, with Eva attempting to rekindle old feelings. Tenma, unswayed and emphasizing his duties, excused himself. Eva, in a desperate bid to control him, resorted to blackmail. She theatrically threatened to implicate Tenma in her father's murder, saying, "I'll tell them the necktie was yours. Honestly, I thought your fashion sense would have improved by now." True to her word, Eva divulged her concocted story to Inspector Lunge, who thanked her, mistakenly believing she aided in solving numerous cases. Subsequently, Tenma, burdened by the unfolding events, tendered his resignation. As he departed, the hospital director received a troubling call, casting Tenma as a murder suspect. A dramatic scene ensued with the police arriving en masse, only to be confronted by patients advocating for Tenma's innocence. In a cinematic escape, Tenma fled in an ambulance, reflecting on his journey from innocence to fugitive. 5 months later, Tenma found himself sharing a ride with a stranger. Clad in a jacket, he was absorbed in a newspaper story about a tragic incident in Verdun involving a doctor accused of murdering a middle-aged couple. The driver, curious, inquired about Tenma's interest in Verdun. Tenma, with a determined look, declared his intent to confront the situation head-on. Meanwhile, Inspector Lunge was delving deep into his investigation, questioning Hugo, a veteran of various military projects, about Tenma. Hugo, steadfast in his loyalty, refused to disclose details about his pupils. Outside the station, a young girl played alone, oblivious to the world's complexities. Later, when Tenma arrived at Hugo's residence, it was apparent he lacked any knowledge about firearms. Hugo was taken aback by Tenma's inexperience, but decided to start his training with an unconventional lesson: rope skipping. He instructed Tenma to emulate the grace of the little girl in the garden. Exhausted after a day of skipping, Tenma attempted to interact with the girl, who offered no response. During dinner, Tenma noticed the girl's silence and inquired about her relation to Hugo. Hugo revealed a heart-wrenching story. The girl's mother was killed by his hands in Myanmar during a dire confrontation. Since then, the girl, bearing a silent grudge, lived with Hugo, never having smiled once. The following day, Tenma diligently fulfilled his duties, observed by the girl. On the third day, after completing his chores and further training, Hugo introduced Tenma to firearms, emphasizing the need for precision. Tenma's first shot echoed through the jungle, marking a pivotal moment in his training. Seeking to share his culture, Tenma prepared a Japanese dish, presenting Hugo and the girl with chopsticks. While the girl adeptly used them, Hugo struggled amusingly, sparking laughter and a rare moment of joy. During a morning run, Tenma encountered the girl caring for an injured chick. Together, they returned the chick to its nest, eliciting the girl's first smile in Hugo's presence. Tenma's training had honed his skills, but as Hugo later reflected in Lunge's office, hitting a target and taking a life were worlds apart. Lunge's inquiry about Tenma's whereabouts hit a dead end with Hugo. In Hugo's home, a letter from Tenma and the remaining tuition fee were discovered, expressing gratitude for the lessons learned. The girl, now more at ease, used chopsticks to enjoy the Japanese meal, laughing at Hugo's continued struggles. After sharing his account with Lunge, Hugo, excited, greeted by the girl's smile. Together, they walked in the rain, a silent acknowledgement of the bond formed through shared hardships. Tenma, meanwhile, was en route to an unknown destination, seated in a truck amid various cargo, leaving his future open to the myriad paths that lay ahead. In a dimly lit bar, Heckle waits impatiently for his drink. When it finally arrives, minus the cherry he specifically asked for, he pointedly requests one. After downing his drink, he settles his bill and leaves. His night, however, was just beginning as he found himself breaking into a large mansion. As he tiptoed through a particularly chilly room, Tenma suddenly commanded him from the shadows to raise his hands and step backwards. Heckle was visibly annoyed by this unexpected encounter. Their brief standoff was cut short by the sound of police sirens, forcing them to flee. In an alley, Heckle recognized Tenma as the doctor accused of a grave crime. Proposing a dubious partnership with the underworld in exchange for Tenma's medical skills, Heckle was met with refusal as Tenma had other priorities. Nonetheless, Heckle revealed he knew the real perpetrator's identity, leading them to a building housing the supposed killer. Inside, they confronted the killer, who was armed and troubled by memories of his mother's death and the sinister request of a man named Erich to eradicate a family, driven by a twisted attempt to erase his own past of familial betrayal. Following the killer's suicide, after confessing his actions were influenced by Erich's manipulations and leaving a message for Tenma, the duo narrowly escaped, heading to a minister's house. There, while Heckle sought money, Tenma discovered a message from Johan, hinting at his growing menace. Their alliance momentarily paused when Tenma was whisked away to attend to a gunshot victim. Faced with a moral dilemma upon learning the patient was involved in a terrorist attack, Tenma chose to save his life, confronting the cycle of violence and manipulation by politicians. Meanwhile, Heckle, captured by gangsters over a debt, leveraged information about the terrorist's whereabouts for his freedom. As the patient confessed his twisted justification for his actions, Tenma treated him, embodying the very essence of his oath as a doctor. Leaving the patient for the authorities, Tenma walked away, his actions echoing louder than any words could. Reunited, Heckle questioned Tenma's altruism, only to learn the terrorist had surrendered. Tenma visits an old building, seeking information about the Liebert family from a man who quickly realizes Tenma's connection to the Liebert case and becomes reticent. Despite Tenma's inquiries about the twins, the man urges him to leave, mentioning the area's history with ex-government officers and providing an address for a minister who might know more. At the minister's house, Tenma learns of the 511 orphanage where the twins were adopted. The abandoned and eerie 511 orphanage site reveals nothing until an elderly woman mentions Hartmann, who could provide insights. Despite a young boy's reluctance to speak about Hartmann and running off after Tenma tends to his wound, Tenma continues his search. Inside Hartmann's home, surrounded by photos of adopted children, Hartmann shares his past work at various orphanages, especially the dreadful conditions at Kinderheim 511. He describes the children there as being treated less like kids and more like young criminals, coming from backgrounds of crime or espionage. Hartmann hesitates but eventually opens up about a significant incident at 511 that changed everything. During dinner, Hartmann expresses his belief in the power of dreams for a pleasant childhood, prompting Tenma to ask Dieter, a boy in Hartmann's care, about his dreams, to which Dieter innocently mentions wanting a soccer ball. Returning with a soccer ball for Dieter, Tenma discovers him in distress and Hartman's dubious intentions, observing Daida's bruises and injuries, indicative of abuse. When Hartman suggests calling the police on Tenma, recognizing him as a wanted individual, Tenma takes decisive action to protect Daida, confronting Hartman and escaping with the boy, ensuring Daida's safety in a hospital and instructing the staff to allow no one but him to take Daida. Tenma seeks a safer environment for Daida at another orphanage. There, he encounters a woman initially suspicious of him, but observes her genuine care for the children. The conversation reveals the twins' tragic adoption story and the grim reality of Eastern Germany's orphanages, particularly Kinderheim 511's notorious reputation as a facility run more like a laboratory cell by government ministries, highlighting the stark contrast between care and cruelty in these institutions. They were the only one when they were rescued from the border of Czechoslovakia. Tenma says the condition of the orphanages on the east side of Germany was horrendous. A little girl emerges from a room and a woman embraces her. The woman then sends the girl back to the room. She explains to Tenma that these kids need love to become good people. She asserts that this orphanage is different from the others. The authorities wanted to turn this place into something similar to the other orphanages, but they resisted to maintain their individuality. The 511 orphanage was the worst. It was run by the Ministry of Health and Welfare along with the Ministry of the Interior. The latter was in charge of the orphanage, which was essentially a laboratory cell. Then, an awful incident occurred at that orphanage. After the death of the director, chaos ensued. All of the instructors vied to be president, but they ended up killing each other instead. Johan was the only one who escaped. However, there was one instructor, a pediatric psychiatrist, who also made it out and managed to keep his research work intact. Tenma recalls Mr. Hartman. Meanwhile, Daida inquires about his soccer ball to a nurse, but Hartman came to take him home. On their way, Daida pleads with Mr. Hartman to take him home instead of the other place, but Hartman had other plans. Tenma arrives at the hospital and questions the nurse about letting Daida leave. The nurse replies that the boy wanted to go with that man. Tenma then heads to Hartman's house, only to find it deserted. Inside a drawer, Tenma discovers pictures, all taken in the same location. He spots a photo of Johan with someone, with the letter 511 visible. It dawns on Tenma that Hartman had taken Daida to the 511 Kinderheim building. Upon arriving, he sees Daida's soccer ball rolling down the stairs. At the top, Daida sits in a chair with a fire blazing in front of him. Hartman emerges, lamenting Daida's uselessness compared to Johan, who he claims was special. Hartman reveals that Johan had witnessed 50 people kill each other by simply igniting a fire. He praised Johan as a born leader, unlike any other. Tenma, armed and determined, confronts Hartman, who argues that Johan's unique qualities are irreplaceable. Hartman offers a piece of information about Dr. Wolf, who first recognized Johan's abilities before insisting Tenma leave. Despite Hartman's manipulations, Daida chooses to leave with Tenma, promised a better tomorrow. Left alone, Hartman collapses in despair. On the road, Tenma advises Daida to take the next bus to Miss Elna Tice, handing him a sealed letter. Daida, however, expresses his wish to stay with Tenma, showing the strength of their bond. And for a bit of lightheartedness in this dark narrative, imagine Tenma trying to navigate through all this with a navigation app that keeps mistaking orphanage for orange juice factory. Outside Petra's place, Mr. Schumann is trying to get a word in edgeways, but Petra's not having it, keeping that door locked tighter than a drum. While Mr. Persistent is knocking, a cyclist zooms up with news that the local tippler took a tumble but got patched up by a mysterious Samaritan. Schumann's not pleased, wondering why they'd let a random Joe fiddle with the patient. When Schumann finally meets the patient, the nurse spills the beans that this good Samaritan not only played nurse, but left behind a note insisting on a freebie treatment for the boozy patient, sweetened with some cash on the side. Schumann, red-faced and fuming, is on a mission to find this overzealous healer. Cut to a diner, where Tenma's breaking the news to Daida that their life is more nomadic than a band's tour schedule. Just as they're mulling over Daida's doomed social life, Schumann bursts in, thrusting the money back at Tenma with a huff, accusing him of being too big for his britches. Right on cue, a cop waltzes in, and Tenma's about ready to bolt, but Schumann, quick on his feet, spins a tale, introducing Tenma as Dr. Chan, fresh from the college circuit. The cop, whose skepticism is as thin as his mustache, buys it, especially after a quip about his mom being indestructible. Tenma, now roped into playing local healer, sees firsthand why Schumann is the town's unofficial mayor. Last on their house called Bingo is Petra's, who's as stubborn as a cat in a bath but eventually caves when Tenma sweet-talks her. Amidst cooking goulash, Petra shares a shoulder complaint, leading Tenma to diagnose a serious condition that has Schumann's eyebrows hitting his hairline. And as fate would have it, Petra takes a dramatic tumble. The plot thickens at the hospital where Tenma, sans proper tools, decides it's MacGyver time for surgery. Meanwhile, at the cockshop, Heinz stumbles upon Tenma's mugshot and decides it's high noon at the OK Corral, setting up roadblocks like it's going out of fashion. Heinz, gun and promotion dreams in hand, barges into the ore, only to be met with Schumann's soapbox moment about maternal love and goulash, a tactic so moving it could turn a stone statue weepy. After a tense standoff and a successful operation, Heinz has a change of heart, mistakenly clearing Tenma's name. Tenma tries to sneak off, but Schumann plays the village pitch, suggesting a lifeless fugitive. Tenma, however, drops the "I gotta kill a man" bombshell, leaving with Dieter in tow, despite Schumann's best efforts to anchor him with village charm and possibly the best girlish west of anywhere. In the high-stakes world of detective work and corporate intrigue, Detective Lunge finds himself navigating a complex web of denial, deceit, and danger. At the office of Mr. Boltzmann, Lunge encounters a secretary more fortified than Fort Knox, outright denying any unsavory connections between Boltzmann and a certain lady of the night. The secretary's threats to take serious actions if Lunge doesn't back off are met with a calm, albeit pointed, observation about the potential scandal that could ensue if Boltzmann's name were to be dragged through the mud. Exiting the office, Lunge can't help but admire the secretary's grit, likening it to a bulldog gripping a bone. The plot thickens back at the precinct when a colleague mentions a mysterious floppy disk that hasn't been cracked yet. With the determination of a cat stalking its prey, Lunge takes on the challenge, suspecting a connection between Boltzmann and the murdered prostitute, both of whom had checked into the same hotel ledger of coincidences. The investigation leads Lunge down a rabbit hole of digital clues and secretive companies, culminating in a confrontation with the Stonewall secretary once more. Despite the secretary's increasing frustration, reminiscent of a kettle about to whistle, Lunge reveals his findings. Boltzmann's name festooned across the client list of a publishing company known for binding scandalous memoirs with lucrative contracts. Amidst professional turmoil, Lunge's personal life unfolds with the subtlety of a soap opera plot twist. His daughter's revelation of her pregnancy and subsequent decision to leave brings a moment of raw, familial reality into the detective's life, adding layers to his character like an onion, each one peeling away to reveal the complexities beneath. The narrative takes a darker turn as Lunge discovers the secretary's tragic fate, a moment that underscores the grave consequences of the secrets they've been chasing. This leads to a poignant scene where Lunge, returning home, finds only the echoes of his family's presence, a broken photo serving as a stark reminder of what's been lost in the pursuit of truth. As the story arcs back to the professional sphere, Lunge finds himself sidelined from the Boltzmann case, his desk cleared for a fresher set of mysteries. However, the persistent detective is not one to be easily deterred. The re-emergence of Ava, with her tangled connections to Tenma and a complex web of personal grievances, promises a new chapter of intrigue. Her interactions with the gardener, a man proud of his green thumb yet entangled in Ava's complex world, offer a brief respite of normalcy before the narrative plunges back into the depths of human complexity and the dark corners of the human heart. In a busy city, a young girl is running hard through the streets. She ends up at a place called Candy Bar, hoping to meet someone very specific. She's told she needs a license for what she's looking to do, but she insists she's just there for one person's permission, not to join the business. Elsewhere, Heckle is playing with Dieter, keeping him company while Tenma is out meeting someone. Tenma meets with Mesna, a man whose life has been turned upside down. Mesna tells Tenma a story of betrayal and danger involving a group known as the Baby. Mesna also mentions something that piques Tenma's interest, a girl whose parents were victims of this dark web of crimes. Back at the Candy Bar, Nina, the girl, faces trouble but is saved by another man who takes her to a room, telling her to wait. The room plays a song she recognizes, and soon, a character known as the Baby enters, dancing. Nina confronts him about her brother, revealing her deep-seated intentions to kill him. As Tenma rushes towards the bar, warned by a woman about the danger inside, he's hit by a car driven by the Baby, who has sinister plans for the city's Turkish district. At a dinner, Ava learns about a grand and dangerous plan involving her brother, Johan, from an old man. This plan seems to echo dark times past, aiming to place Johan in a position of immense power. Meanwhile, Nina discovers a gun and hears a plea for help from a Turkish woman, hinting at an imminent disaster for the Turkish community. Nina finds herself in the heart of a conspiracy that threatens an entire community. Urged by a Turkish woman's desperate plea, she vows to thwart a sinister plot aimed at the Turkish quarter. The urgency of the situation is palpable as Nina learns from Ace, a woman who stumbled upon a chilling plan by extremists to ignite the district in flames. Meanwhile, Dieter, feeling betrayed by Hekel's dishonest actions, finds himself wandering the streets, lost and hungry. His path crosses with a Turkish woman who had earlier warned Tenma about the dangers lurking in the candy bar. Taking him under her wing, she offers Dieter food and kindness, becoming a beacon of hope in his day. Back at the bar, the narrative takes a darker turn, with Tenma enduring torture at the hands of the baby, who reveals his grandiose plans to parade Tenma before the enigmatic Mr. Wolf. The baby's delusions of grandeur and his obsession with receiving accolades from Wolf highlight his twisted motivations. In a stark juxtaposition, Dieter's innocent attempt to seek solace in the bar ends in discomfort and a deeper realization of the harsh realities around him. His discovery of Tenma's jacket propels him into further danger, yet it also ties him closer to the unfolding events. Nina's mission takes a tragic turn when she discovers Ace murdered, a stark reminder of the brutality of their adversaries. The bond they briefly shared emphasizes the fleeting connections that form in the midst of chaos, making Ace's death all the more poignant. The narrative converges as Tenma and Dieter, now united with a group intent on rescuing them, set their sights on saving the Turkish quarter. Their journey is fraught with revelations and confrontations, leading Tenma to a mansion where the depths of the conspiracy are further unveiled. Wolf, surviving amidst the carnage, engages Tenma in a philosophical dialogue, revealing the true extent of Johan's manipulations and the misguided ambitions of their collective. As Dieter struggles to rally support for the imperiled Turkish quarter, his interactions underscore the complexity of human relationships and the challenging decisions that define our humanity. The story culminates in a crescendo of suspense and moral dilemmas, with Tenma and Nina navigating a labyrinth of betrayal, identity, and the search for justice. Amidst the backdrop of imminent violence and the quest for redemption, they find themselves on converging paths to a showdown that promises to reshape their destinies. In a tense moment, Tenma shifts gears, driven by Dieter's words. He convinces the driver to head to Calvin Street, despite knowing Wolf would not be pleased. Tenma is determined to intervene before Johan's planned havoc unfolds. Upon reaching Calvin Street, Tenma finds the Turkish woman who had earlier met him. She recognizes him through Dieter's descriptions, but is devastated to learn her friend and the child's mother has been killed. Despite the crushing news, Tenma rallies her to warn the town's representatives. Skepticism meets their warning. The representatives hesitate to act on the words of an outsider and a woman of disrepute. It takes the intervention of Denise, a respected old Turkish man, to mobilize the community. Citing a historical debt to the Japanese, he persuades the townsfolk to unite against the impending threat. As the plot thickens, the baby dines, oblivious to the counteractions against his grim festivities, anticipating the chaos he's orchestrated as merely an appetizer. Nina, embodying the same fierce determination as her brother Johan, confronts the baby, gun in hand, disrupting his calm with the intensity of her resolve. Meanwhile, Tenma and the townspeople fight the fires, a physical and symbolic battle against the forces threatening their peace. Nina's discovery of Dieter and Hekel, tied up in a room set to be consumed by flames, highlights the ruthlessness of their enemies, but also the strength of their newfound alliance. Hekel's insight into the wind's shift directs Nina towards the true target, a factory by the river, potentially the epicenter of a catastrophic fire. In a race against time, Tenma, informed by Hekel, rushes to the factory, where Nina and Dieter are already confronting the final threat. A standoff ensues, with Nina at the brink of violating Tenma's advice against violence. The tension snaps when Tenma intervenes, preventing the disaster but not without igniting a fire. Quick thinking and action from Dieter, using the rope to smother the flames, avert a larger tragedy. As the crisis winds down, the aftermath sees the authorities taking control, but the true resolution lies in the hands of our protagonists. Nina shares with Tenma a revelation about Johan's message, suggesting a duality within Johan that mirrors the complexities within themselves. Together, Tenma, Dieter, and Hekel move towards the next chapter, guided by Johan's cryptic message about the growing monster within, a metaphor for the challenges they face both externally and internally. At a pivotal moment in their journey, Tenma, Dieter and Heckle follow the clues left by Johan, leading them to his last ominous message about the growing darkness within him. Meanwhile, Anna faces questioning by the police, maintaining her ignorance of Dr. Tenma despite his apparent heroics during the recent crisis. Her careful denial and the subsequent release from the station underscore the complex dance between truth and survival in their world. Outside, Mr. Rosso awaits Anna, offering a semblance of normalcy with an invitation to dine. Their interaction at the restaurant peels back layers of their past, revealing a deep connection rooted in shared experiences and unspoken understanding. Rosso's habit of sweetening his coffee excessively, a quirk leading to a rare moment of laughter from Anna, serves as a bridge to happier times and a stark contrast to their current realities. As Rosso reminisces about their past, from Anna's time working in his restaurant to her marksmanship training, a narrative unfolds, painting a picture of a life marked by simplicity and the looming shadows of their hidden selves. Rosso's admission of his aversion to guns and the visceral fear they evoke in him hints at a man wrestling with his own demons, a theme mirrored in Anna's own journey. The conversation shifts to a more somber tone as Rosso confronts Anna with the truth about her identity and his past as a professional assassin. The revelation, paired with Rosso's confession about the moment that led him to renounce his violent ways, lays bare the complex moral landscapes they navigate. Anna's pursuit of answers, driven by a quest for understanding rather than vengeance, highlights her inner turmoil and the burdens of knowledge. In the end, as Anna departs, Rosso's parting words about the ease of losing oneself to darkness when disconnected from life's simpler joys encapsulate the central dilemma of their existence. Anna's tears as the train pulls away are not just for Rosso or for the city she leaves behind, but for the innocence lost along the way and the relentless pursuit of truth in a world where answers often lead to more questions. Gillen Rudy, a renowned criminal psychologist, is engrossed in a chilling session with a serial killer who hints at Rudy's personal struggles, deflecting the conversation from his own crimes. Despite Rudy's attempt to delve into the psyche behind the killer's early murders, the killer redirects to a later victim, Miss Kempf, sparking Rudy's curiosity about the anomaly in the killer's pattern. In his office, Rudy analyzes the killer's pattern, noting a deviation in the age and treatment of his last victim, suggesting a murder committed not out of compulsion, but at someone else's behest. Amidst this analysis, Tenma appears, seeking Rudy's expertise to understand the cryptic messages left by Johan, unveiling a complex web of psychological manipulation and dark intentions. Rudy recounts a story of academic rivalry and moral compromise, highlighting the pressures and ethical dilemmas faced by individuals in their quest for recognition, drawing a parallel to Tenma's pursuit of Johan. Tenma's plea for assistance prompts Rudy to reflect on the psychopathic tendencies and the deceptive normalcy that serial killers can exhibit, agreeing to further investigate the messages left by Johan. A tense moment unfolds as Rudy plays Tenma's recorded details to the serial killer, provoking a violent reaction and revealing a frightening transformation in the killer, indicating the profound impact of Johan's manipulation. Rudy's subsequent decision to involve the police, while planning to use Tenma's case for research, demonstrates the ethical quandaries inherent in the pursuit of understanding the human psyche. The investigation leads Rudy to the Kempf mansion, where he uncovers chilling evidence of the killer's childhood trauma linked to Johan's manipulation. The discovery of letters mirroring the messages to Johan confirms the existence and influence of this enigmatic figure, tying disparate threads of murder and psychological torment to a singular, malevolent force orchestrating chaos from the shadows. As Rudy and Tenma converge in an amusement park, surrounded by undercover police, Rudy reveals the depth of his investigation into Jurgens, another killer manipulated by Johan, and the tragic fate of Mrs. Kempf, culminating in a public acknowledgement of Tenma's innocence. This revelation, juxtaposed against the backdrop of police surveillance, underscores the intricate dance between truth, deception, and the quest for justice in a world marred by unseen puppet masters. In a final twist, Rudy's admission of academic dishonesty, mirrored by Tenma's own confession, sheds light on the complexities of human nature, the pressures of societal expectations, and the choices that define us. As Tenma departs on a bus, evading capture, his journey continues, not for personal vindication, but to confront the darkness embodied by Johan. Dr. Tenma and Dieter find themselves on a new leg of their journey, hitching a ride with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, a middle-aged couple navigating their way through unfamiliar territories. The initial tension in the car, stemming from Mr. Jones' background as a former police officer, soon gives way to a sense of camaraderie despite Tenma's underlying anxiety about being discovered. The ride takes an unexpected turn when they run out of fuel, leading to Tenma and Daido embarking on a mission to fetch gasoline, leaving the couple stranded yet oddly content under the vast sky. Their return with fuel reinforces the couple's faith in Tenma's character, a moment of light in the shadow of Tenma's fugitive status. A shared meal at a restaurant further cements their bond, with Mr. Jones humorously musing on his declining instincts for distinguishing between the guilty and innocent. This moment of self-reflection offers Tenma a rare reprieve from the suspicion that typically shadows him. The journey takes a suspenseful detour to a police station, igniting fear in Tenma and Daido of their imminent capture. Yet, the moment passes without incident, leading them to Steinbach Castle, where the breathtaking view and the promise of meeting the Joneses' son await. As the journey with the Joneses concludes, Mr. Jones confides in Mrs. Jones about his own son's troubled past, revealing a parallel between his family's ordeal and Tenma's plight. This revelation sheds light on the complexity of human nature and the capacity for kindness and understanding amidst personal turmoil. In this narrative, Tenma's encounter with the Joneses not only provides a temporary shelter from his relentless pursuit, but also mirrors the broader themes of judgment, redemption, and the enduring search for truth. Michael asks Barbara, who is lunging beside the pool, if she would like a Moscow Mule. He's also brought some juice for Fritz. Barbara insists that Fritz thank his dad. Fritz offers a tepid thank you to Michael, addressing him formally as Mr. As Barbara and Michael enjoy their quality time, Michael suddenly feels watched from the second-floor window of the neighbor's house. Barbara dismisses his concerns, reminding him that the house is supposed to be empty. Eventually, Barbara reveals that she heard from Mrs. Daughtry about ghost sightings in that house following the murder of a couple there 20 years ago. After a swim, Michael decides it's time for an outing with his family, leaving the bodyguard at home to foster a better relationship with Fritz. A detective is poring over Kenzo's documents, discussing them with Michael. The police suspect Kenzo in the murder of the aforementioned couple, but he's vanished without a trace. According to Kenzo, a boy named Johan, whom he saved 10 years ago, is responsible for killing 3 people and fleeing. These victims include the director of Isla Memorial Hospital. The detective also informs Michael about Nina Fortner, the daughter of the murdered couple, who is currently missing. The discussion moves to Messner, who was killed by an adversary during a drug deal. Messner was Michael's partner when he was in the police force. Furthermore, the detective mentions a figure known as the Baby, the leader of an extremist group responsible for an attempted massacre in Turkish quarters, which was thwarted by someone named Tenma, believed to be Dr. Tenma. The next day, Michael is jolted from a nightmare about the murdered couple while sunbathing by the pool. During a chess game with Roberto, Michael reflects on his past failures, all of which seemingly turned around with a single phone call. He and Messner had been involved in drug trafficking, and the voice on the other end of the call had demanded the murder of the Fortner couple in Heidelberg in exchange for silence. Following the murder, and with a substantial payoff, Michael was able to start anew, eventually meeting his wife and leaving his criminal past behind. Now he's desperate to uncover the identity of the mysterious caller. However, upon entering his home, Michael discovers the detective's body, a bullet wound in his head. Suddenly, Nina appears, introducing herself as the daughter of the Fortners. She claims to have seen Roberto kill the detective from the neighboring house. Though Michael trusts Roberto, he's shaken by Nina's accusation and her quest for vengeance. Nina snatches the detective's bag and flees, with Roberto ominously ascending the stairs, gun in hand. Michael decides to escape, jumping into a car where Nina is already waiting, gun pointed at him. She demands he drive fast. As Michael shares how he was blackmailed into killing her parents, Nina, moved by his story and his family, lowers her gun, deciding not to perpetuate a cycle of vengeance. Michael reveals the intricate details of his involvement with the organization, his life with Barbara and Fritz, and his decision to hire a detective to learn more about Nina, Messner, and Tenma. Tragically, the detective was killed before he could share crucial information about Messner's real killer. Nina discovers in the detective's files that Roberto is implicated in Messner's murder. Suddenly, Roberto calls, demanding the return of the detective's bag, threatening Barbara and Fritz's safety. With no other choice, Michael agrees to return, asking Nina for her gun to confront Roberto. As they prepare to face Roberto, Fritz unwittingly interrupts, running outside to show off a fishing rod. Barbara follows, informing Michael of guests from the security company. This confusion allows Michael to notice that the detective's body and any evidence of the crime have been removed. When Michael confronts Roberto and hands over the bag, Roberto captures Nina. In a tense moment, Michael demands the truth, but Roberto insists they only want him to live happily with his family, urging him to forget the past. Despite this unsettling resolution, Michael's life resumes its routine, though under Roberto's watchful eye. Nina is taken by Roberto under the pretext of meeting Johan, but Michael manages to rescue her from a dire fate, wounded in the process. Their return home marks a bittersweet victory, with Michael wounded but his family and Nina safe for now. In a city that seems to always be under a cloud of mystery, another set of grisly discoveries has set the rumor mill on fire. The media, smelling blood, is badgering the higher-ups with questions about whether a notorious serial killer is back in action. In the midst of this chaos, a reporter named Kipper managed to corner a special agent from the Confederacy, whose very presence in town has everyone whispering that things are about to get real. Kipper bombards the agent with questions, but the detective, as cool as a cucumber in a freezer, urges Kipper to make sure he gets his story straight. He confirms that the murders bear the signature mark of their elusive serial killer. The plot thickens as our Confederate detective, trying to get into the mind of the killer, realizes that something's off. His mental reenactment of the murder scene doesn't match the actual crime scene, leading to a classic hum moment. In a twist that feels like a mix of detective work and a door-to-door salesman, he shows a photo of Dr. Tenma to the neighbors, asking if they've seen him, while advising them to act natural and dial him up if they spot the doctor. The detective's chat with a neighbor reveals that the lady of the recently deceased couple was hard of hearing, a detail not known by many and missing from the killer's MO. The plot then takes us to Mr. Gibble, the sole relative of the unfortunate couple. In a scene dripping with suspicion, the detective corners Gibble with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, asking about his inheritance and insinuating that murder for money is as old as time itself. Just when you think the detective can catch a break, Kipper pops up again, hungry for the truth. Detective Lunge, with the patience of a saint and the strategy of a chess master, reveals that it was indeed Gibble who committed the murders, driven by financial desperation. However, Lunge wants to keep the serial killer narrative going in the media as a trap, convincing Kipper to stick to the story with the gentle persuasion of revealing Kipper's own skeletons in the closet. In a twist no one saw coming, except perhaps everyone, Dr. Tenma shows up, and through a series of events involving stabbings, shootings, and a dramatic car chase that ends in a warehouse showdown, the truth comes out. Gibble confesses, Lunge takes a knife wound like a champ, and Tenma ends up playing doctor to the detective he's handcuffed to. As Lunge wakes up in the hospital, the police debate his future on the case, unaware that chasing Tenma gives Lunge the kind of thrill most people reserve for skydiving without a parachute. And just like that, the game is back on, with Lunge's hospital bed serving as the starting block. It's like the detective version of You Had Me at Hello, except it's You Had Me at You're Under Arrest. Eva Hyman's day kicked off on a high note, waking up from a nap in a charmingly dark alley and promptly getting a free ride to the police station. After being released, she embarks on a quest for a half-smoked cigarette, because why waste a good smoke, right? However, a light bulb moment, sans the actual light, reveals she's missing a bag, sparking a thrilling adventure back to the station. The police hand her a form for stolen goods with the enthusiasm of a cashier at a 24-hour convenience store at 3 a.m. Eva, unfazed and bagless, saunters back to her hotel to play the damsel in distress, sans distress but with a flair for drama. Upon entering her hotel room, she's greeted by what looks like the aftermath of a toddler's birthday party, if the toddler was searching for classified documents. Realizing she's down to her last penny, which she probably wouldn't find if she tried, she attempts to reconnect with an old friend who, unfortunately, seems to have misplaced his generosity along with his manners. Eva's night takes a turn for the cinematic as she liberates a drink from a homeless philosopher and ponders the deeper meanings of lost luggage over gulps. Her quest for answers and possibly more free drinks leads her back to the pub, her story spinning more than a DJ on a caffeine high. As fate, or perhaps just bad decisions, would have it, she ends up on a park bench, possibly considering a career in birdwatching, when Roberto appears like a plot twist in a soap opera, holding her long-lost black bag. Apparently, they had shared a night of drinking, during which Eva must have been auditioning for a role in The Most Interesting Woman in the World. Roberto, possibly mistaking the situation for a date, offers her a drink, and Eva, proving she's never one to turn down free booze, accepts. They bond over an album of family photos because nothing says, let's get to know each other, like a walk down someone else's memory lane. Roberto, clearly a fan of soap opera twists, demands photos that aren't there, and in a move that screams, I need better friends, slaps Eva. Eva, undeterred and possibly thinking she's in a telenovela, laughs it off, revealing she's been on a quest related to Tenma and a mysterious figure from the photos. Flashback to a cafe in 1995, where Eva's romantic history could fill a novel. She's plotting to derail Tenma's love life like it's her job. After a failed attempt to play Cupid in reverse, Eva finds herself at a construction site, confusing it for a dramatic backdrop for her unrequited love saga. As she cries out for Tenma, the universe, in its infinite humor, sends Johan instead of her Prince Charming. The night ends with Roberto who, having mistaken himself for a character in a noir film, decides Eva knows too much because, in his world, seeing Johan is apparently equivalent to seeing the ending of a movie you weren't supposed to know about. Eva Hyman's brush with danger turned into a scene straight out of a suspense novel when she found herself staring down the barrel of Roberto's gun, yet she woke up chuckling. It seemed the enigmatic young man she encountered a year prior was never meant to be part of her memories. Rising from the bed, modesty cloaked in a blanket, Eva was caught in a moment of reflection. She had believed Dr. Tenma to be Johan's target, yet the morning's headlines told a tale of Dr. Reichwein's associate. Junkers, meeting a tragic end instead. With the calm of a poker player bluffing her hand, Eva confronted Roberto. She bartered the only currency she had left, the promise of Johan's childhood photos in exchange for Tenma's whereabouts. Despite her bravado, fear betrayed her with trembling legs, leading her to a vulnerable kneel. Roberto, perhaps amused or moved by her determination, chose to divulge Tenma's location instead of pulling the trigger. According to Roberto, Tenma was aiding a significant figure within the underworld, nestled away in a mansion near Füssen. There, Tenma was found setting a table under the open sky for a convalescent man and a young boy, Dieter, marking the man's first meal outside the confines of crime. Amidst the serene lunch, the man recounted his life's ruthless path to wealth, only to find solace in a simple meal together. He spoke of a banking scheme that laundered vast amounts of illicit funds, only for it to collapse when its mastermind vanished, hinting at a young prodigy behind it all, possibly Johan. The narrative took a grim turn as Roberto, with Eva in tow, ambushed the scene, leaving Dieter to fend for them. Amidst the chaos, Eva, now wounded, instructed Dieter to urge Tenma to flee. The ensuing struggle saw Eva losing consciousness, only to be revived by Tenma's timely intervention. In the aftermath, as Eva recuperated under the care of the man she was once set against, she learned that Tenma had departed for Munich, leaving behind a tale of intrigue and redemption. The lunch, once a symbol of newfound peace, had turned into a poignant reminder of the lives entwined by fate's cruel weave.